Thank you, everybody, for attending Karin Ryder's Legacy and Awesome Life. We appreciate everybody being here today. It's always difficult on weekends to get away for things, but we really appreciate you being here. I am not a public speaker, but I'm going to do my best, so bear with me. We chose the theme, The Sound of Music, because The Sound of Music was the very first movie that, as a family, we ever went to. I think it's the only movie we ever went to. It subsequently beats on television. And we just grew up with The Sound of Music, so Mom always liked The Sound of Music. You're not supposed to say I found a quote from Mitch Albom, who's written over 60 books, and I'm sure most of you are aware of Mitch Albom and working for the Free Press. He always said, I'm quoting him, "But there's a story behind everything, how a picture got on a wall, how a scar got on your face, or anywhere else. Sometimes the stories are simple, tripped and fell, or much different than that. And sometimes they are hard and heartbreaking. But behind all your stories is always your mother's story, because hers is where yours begin." And all of our stories begin with Karin K. Ryder, formerly Karin K. Karin. And Mom, as you can see, was quite an amazing woman with courage and strength, and you can see how in love Mom and Dad were back in those days. And they're very early 18-year-old, probably picture of Mom, and Dad was probably about 23. There's their wedding day, and that's Uncle Noel, Kathy's father, on the right side, and that was a friend of Mom's on the left when they got married. Mom raised 5 wonderful children, and I'm sure that was no easy feat. She said the older we got, the harder it was. And probably most parents will say the same thing. We had a great childhood. Mom always made everything better, like most mothers. Her loss is very difficult daily. It's hard to believe it's been 2 months to the day that she passed at our home. But she kept saying one thing in particular: "Don't worry, he'll be okay. Don't worry, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay." Okay, well, any day. Mom attended Saginaw Valley State College when it was a college, now it's a university. She graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0 grade point average, raising still, I think, 5. Randy might have been at college already at that point. And she maintained a 4.0 grade point average for every year, and then even maintained a 4.0 grade point average when she got her K through 12 certification. She is loved by many of teachers and blessed with many of friends and colleagues, and she never had an unkind word to say about anybody. I think she's an inspiration to everyone. I was reading through some of the materials that she had accumulated. I use that word loosely. Mom ran for Hemlock School Board of Education, and I don't remember the year, but she ran for a four-year term, and I was blown away that Mom ran for Board of Education, and I don't remember that at all. but it was always her intent that she wanted kids to get the best education they could get. And I'm sure all the teachers that worked with her all probably know the same thing. I've had the good fortune to speak to some of the kids. When Mom was teaching 3rd grade, she would give students a German penny. It was called a Pfennig. And I spoke to her first class, one of the children she had in that class, and she's 45 or 46 years old now, and she said, "I loved your mom. I wasn't a good student, but she believed in me, she inspired me, and I still have that German penny she gave me for my birthday." That penny to those kids, would have been like giving them $1 million today, except the value would be the same. But she touched her kids that way, and the letters and just all the achievements. And the achievements didn't come easy. She had to work hard. You know, can you imagine trying to study to keep a 4.0 grade point average when you're running a household? So she did her studying probably between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, and probably getting up an hour later. That is her mother right next to her. That was Emily Yerke, another amazing German lady that we all loved and was a big supporter of Mom, and just, what can you say? If you knew my mom, she would do anything for you. And she loved being in band boosters. It was one of the board show that Mom and Dad got the Super Music Booster Award one year. And she spent a lot of time doing band booster stuff, raising money, helped with arranging for a trip to Germany with the Gipperts and I think Jerry Blau, one of the band teachers, and she did everything she could for us. And she will be very missed. She battled breast cancer not only once but twice. She battled thyroid cancer. She had hip replacement. She had aortic valve replacement. This woman did not stop. She was Energizer Bunny. So at this time, I am going to welcome Rachel Baird. She's the chaplain from Hospice of Michigan, who has been a rock for us during this difficult time. And I will have Rachel Baird come on up. Thank you for coming today, Rachel.
Thank you. That's good, I think. Can you all hear me? Yes. Well, I'm very honored and grateful to be here today. It's always a privilege to be a part of a family's life in this tenderest of times. So I want to thank you all for being here too, to celebrate the life of a very special lady and to mourn her passing. Karin Ryder lived a long and a productive life, as Jim just summarized only pieces of. It was full of love, both given and received. I'd like to start with two scripture readings chosen by the family. They speak of a faith which Karin held to, faith in God's presence and protection, even in the darkest of times. The first is a prayer from the 2nd chapter of Jonah. You might remember that Jonah was on a boat, trying to run away from the direction that God was calling him. And God sent a storm, and the boat was going to sink, so they threw Jonah overboard, and he was swallowed by a big fish. Not a whale, actually, if you look at the Bible, but a big fish. And so that was a pretty dark time for Jonah. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled about me. All your waves and breakers swept over me. I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me, the deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. Through the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say, salvation comes from the Lord. The second reading is the best known and the most beloved, I think, of all the Psalms, Psalm 23. If you know it, please feel free to say it along with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And it's the house in which we can now imagine, picture Karin enjoying the fruits of everlasting love. I was privileged to meet Karin and her family only in her last days, when I came to sing to her and pray with her and the family. But here is what I can tell you. When I walked into the room, the love was so bright and so clear you could almost touch it. It's amazing, isn't it, how in such moments we remember the love and we forget the arguments, the misunderstandings, the moments of anger that inevitably arise in any relationship. The love that Karin's family has for her, the love she gave them throughout their lives, all of it was gathered into that room and made it a sacred space. We celebrate her life with us as we celebrate that she is now again with her loved ones who have gone before. That does not mean no grieving allowed. The very love we have for each other brings deep sorrow when we are parted by death. Jesus himself wept at the grave of his friend. So while we rejoice that Karin has entered into the nearer presence of her Lord, we mourn our own loss of her presence with us. So, what brings you here today? The answer might be obvious. You're here because Karin Ryder, your beloved mother, grandmother, aunt, friend, has died. So you're here to take a few moments to remember her and to honor her memory. But why now? Why here? I doubt that anyone here will ever forget that beloved face. I imagine each of you has already found or will find your own individual ways to honor her memory. It might be as traditional as lighting a candle in church, or as simple as saying hello to her picture on the mantelpiece as you pass by. You might find connection in visiting special places you enjoyed with her, or listening to music that somehow reminds you of her. Most of us find some kind of ritual to remember, to honor, to connect with the ones we miss. Not necessarily religious ritual, not necessarily public, but something that helps us get through the really awful times and know that the one we lost is in some way not lost and is still with us. Raindrops gathering in a rain barrel cease to be raindrops to our limited sight, but they do not cease to be. They become part of something larger, just as they came from something larger in an eternal cycle. So it is with our spirits and with our love. They never die, but do transform in ways we don't fully understand. So our need to feel connected to those we love doesn't end when their body is no more. We need to speak of them. We need to talk to them. We need to hear from them. And speaking of, talking to, and even hearing from our loved ones who have died does not make us crazy. It makes us human. What is special about our ritual today is remembering together. Is simply that. We're doing it together. Today, more than ever, we are a community bound together by grief and healing, loss and love. You know, grieving is sort of like driving in Michigan. You never know when you're going to get bogged down by construction or have to take a detour onto an unfamiliar road full of potholes and rocks, unexpected twists and turns. The beauty of this time today is that we are here with others who understand the road we are on, because they're on the same road. Well, maybe not exactly the same, but one very much like it. And every now and then, one of those detours opens up onto a beautiful view, an unexpected ray of sunshine. As we go forward, what looked from afar like an impassable rushing river may calm as we approach, and a place where we can cross will appear. Sometimes what we need most is simply to be alone. Alone with our thoughts and our memories and our tangle of emotions. And often, what we need most is to know that we are not alone. So thank you for being here today. To remind yourself and to remind Karin's family and all who grieve today that we are not alone. We are all gifts to each other, as Karin was a gift in each of your lives. We stay connected to those we love in this world and beyond this world by continuing to love. So I'd like to sing a song I sang at Karin's bedside. I like to think of it as sort of a farewell message from Karin. From this day on, I will know peace and bear the fruits of everlasting love. And as my cares and trials cease, I'll fly the heavens like a soaring dove. From this day on, I will know rest, as sweet affection holds my memory, for I can see that I am blessed by all the loving kindness given me. My soul knows the ways From this day on, I will be free of all the worldly troubles I once knew. And as I go, remember me. With all my heart, I give my love to you. As Irving Berlin once said, the song is ended, but the melody lingers on.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, it's only seed. It's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. It's the dream afraid of waking that never takes the chance. It's the one who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to live. When the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose.
I would like to welcome Mr. Roger Ryder to the front to talk to you about the life's four seasons.
Mister. That's the first time I've had a call with Mister. Guess I better do good. First off, thanks everybody for being here. It's not easy on a weekend. It's Mother's Day, so thank you and God bless all the mothers here. We appreciate you. Tough job. I wouldn't want it. Thank God I didn't have to do it. But being a dad's pretty exciting too, and that's thanks to my mom. But I want to first have a few people stand up. And the first is going to be Frank Colasanti, great supporter to Jim, spouse, my wife Amy. Stand up. I gotta take a minute.
That's Roger's son, Jordan.
All right. Sorry. Lost him about a year ago. I think the next thing I'm gonna do is something Karin would do for her classes, and I'm gonna say it'd be kind of cool because it's a school teacher thing. And I remember doing it with my first and second grade teachers, and everybody stand up. Stand up. You've been in here just long enough. Reach for the stars. On your tiptoes. Stretch. Down easy. Breathe deep. Okay, sit yourself back down. That's supposed to get everybody focused. I don't know if that'll work. Usually I was sleeping and somebody had to take my chair to wake me up first. But that helped me get refocused here because I lost my son last year, so. What I want to kind of touch on first is, like Jim said, education was near and dear to Mom, and she was educating us from the day she brought us home from the nursery. We didn't know it. With family values, respect of elders, respect of the bus driver, the janitor, the teacher, the stranger on the road, maybe even that person that was a hobo or homeless. Respect started at the house, and it was a foundation, building block. And let's pray to God that we see our society get a little better at that, because we kind of got a little lax in the last 10 or 15 years. But moving right along, we got to get this in an hour, otherwise I think they're going to drag me out of here. The 4 seasons of life, the way I look at them, and everybody looks at them a little differently, of course, you got spring, and it's the bloom, and you got new seeds and new growth. And that's our children. But that doesn't have to just be young people, because I think every day when we wake up, we kind of get to rebloom. We had a bad day, bad week, bad life up to this point. Every day's a new one. We can start over fresh. And Mom would promote that through so many ways, through her volunteering, through how she touched other people, just how she treated people. And I think those that she came in contact with were better people for it. And I don't think anybody could argue that if they met Mom. And that, spring, we could say that with my mom was probably from the time she was born, a really rough spring for the first 5 years because she was in World War II Germany. And she relayed a story to me literally, I think, 3 weeks before she passed at Jim and Frank's house, about her remembering that last, when she was 4, walking with her daddy hand in hand to the train station. And I thought, that's a pretty impactful thing to be instilled with all your life and still be able to remember that as fresh as it was when you were 4 years old. And we're talking 78 years previous, and this is a lady with Parkinson's and a lot of health issues, and she was able to reflect back on that. I thought, well, that's interesting, because we knew that her dad, Heinrich, was a Luftwaffe navigator instructor for the German Air Force, and he was captured first on that train near Prague, Czechoslovakia, by the American forces, and only for a few hours, though, unfortunately, and then our American forces, due to mission constraints and whatever, turned him over to the Russian military. And those of us that are history buffs know the Russians were not big fond folks of the Germans for the way things played out years previous to this. But anyhow, long story short, he ended up in a prison camp over on the Caspian Sea. It was an oil-rich area, so it was going to be a slave labor camp for Heinrich, my grandfather. And while he was living the last few days of his life, which we could basically say was his winter, because that was the end of his life, even at maybe 30, 32 years, if he was even that old. My mom was in the bloom in the spring of her life, and so I think it's interesting, we don't ever get caught up on the seasons because, yeah, we have spring, summer, fall, and winter. But like I said earlier, every day should be looked at as a new spring when we wake up. With my mom, when she was 12, she got to get on a big, scary, noisy, 4 radial engined Lockheed TriStar aircraft, and it was probably the most frightening thing for a 12-year-old German girl that couldn't speak 3 words of English, top on a plane by herself and make the biggest voyage that she had ever made. Because prior to that, it was probably within a few miles of her house there in Germany in Kaufbeuren. And so I think she probably lived a couple of seasons and a whole lot of life on the trip from Germany to New York in probably 12 hours. And she could tell you about that story, and she did a lot of her friends and her colleagues. And I think that was both the scariest and probably the most adventurous and the most interesting and exciting thing probably to start her life to soon to be an American citizen that she was really proud of. You know, because back then you had to take tests, you had to learn a language, she had foster parents over in Ludington, great people, Arthur and Finney Barkley, and they took really good care of her, but they were her host parents, and so she also had to get used to a whole new set of parents, a whole new set of rules, and during this whole time, kids worked back in those days when she wasn't over in Saginaw at the Lutheran Seminary getting her education, K through 12, she was out in Scottville picking fruit and vegetables and working and being loved by Art and Finney. So they were a second set of very important people in her spring. And I would try to keep it short because I know I'll put you all to sleep, but I would say her spring probably sort of ended when she met my father and quickly decided they'd be married. And by the time she was 18, she was. And by the time she was 19, she had my oldest brother, Randy. And so she was a mom. And I want to say when she hit 19, she was in the summer. Those seeds had been planted. These new little lives were coming up, growing, and she had a whole lot on her plate. And she did a pretty good job, I think. We're all here. None of us went to prison. And we all got educated. And a lot of it was my mom that educated us before we ever got to kindergarten. And so did Dad. He did well with us as well. And I would say Mom's summer probably really didn't conclude until at the age of, I think, 40 was when she went back to college. Late 30s or early 40. And then she was transitioning. I think I was about a freshman in high school at the time. And she's transitioning to do what she wanted to do when she was 18, but she decided she was going to be a housewife and a mom, and she did a great job. But she had a lot of time to think about it. She wanted that career, so she did it. And she put her mind to it. And as Jim said earlier, she didn't do it, pardon the expression, half-assed. She went at it full boots on, straight ahead. Nothing but the best she could do. And I think that also in her summer would have been her 18 or 19 years of educating. And I think every year was a new challenge, and she loved it more than the previous year. And when cancer got her into a position where she had to take a leave of absence, she knew she had to get better with that cancer the first time, and she did it reluctantly. And she was glad to go back to teaching for a short time until cancer returned and her health didn't allow it. And I'm positive, although she never dwelled on it, that was a hard time for her, because she didn't get to teach as much as she wanted, but she took that 18 or 19 years, I think she had at it, and man, I know the kids she taught, we still hear it from them. And these kids got kids of their own. They said, geez, I wish the teachers were like that nowadays. They can't do anything. All we're doing is SAT, all these tests, and we're not learning German. We're not learning how to make Apfelkuchen or how to what a Leibkuchen is, or any of the fun things she incorporated in her class. So I'm kind of jealous I wasn't in her class, but I kind of got a good feeling that all of those kids had a better education than just standard public education. Nothing wrong with that. But I think the parents and everybody that was involved with those kids also realized, hey, they got a good year of education there. It was a little more than what they paid in their school taxes. So I'd say Mom's summer kind of wrapped up when she medically retired. However, she didn't stop. As we can see these poster boards, she volunteered a lot when we were still kids and when she was a homemaker, a housewife with band boosters, and she didn't do that half-ass either, pardon the expression. And it got us a lot of places. We went to Niagara Falls with Carl and the band. We went to Toronto, Washington, D.C. for Reagan's inauguration the second time, and then over to Bavaria, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And those are memories. As long as my brain still has a couple of, cells working, I know I'm gonna remember everything about that. And so I think Mom's, that and the volunteering at the cancer center too meant a lot. She was a mentor to so many folks that were in stage 4 cancer that had given up as soon as they heard stage 4 must be the end of the game. But I said, no, I think stage 4. This is 17 years later, what are you talking about? A lot of chapters in the book. You don't have to skip those good ones, even if they're in the fall of your life. Keep going with it. Get right up to that first snow, and then, okay, when the book starts getting close to the end, we'll call it the winter. And with the winter, it's beautiful too, and there's a bloom. The bloom might not be noticed by the human eye, but something somewhere underneath that snowpack or ice, there's probably a bud, or there's something going on, and there's life that we don't even realize. There might be running water underneath that frozen lake that looks like there's no way. There's still a lot of life. There's a lot of bloom, a lot of spring in that winter. So that's kind of in a short way, and most of my family's thinking he's talked too long already. 4 seasons, we're really not. We're lucky we get 4 seasons. We gotta have a way to gauge time through a calendar, but I know if Mom was here, she'd be the same way. Nature's a beautiful thing. It's part of the living system that we see the spring with the bloom, the summer with the growth, the fall with the harvest, and the winter with the slowdown and the death. And that is the life cycle. And I hope all you guys think about that each and every morning you wake up. It's a new spring. Thank you.
When troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
And a big thank you for Josh Groban for singing that, especially for us. And at this time, we'd like to invite friends and family that would like to speak. Any special memories or anything they'd like to say about the life of our mom, Karin Ryder? Don't all rush up. Mr. Joshua Newman, welcome to the stage here.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Josh. The youngest grandchild of Karin. Didn't really prepare anything, so I just wanted to talk about my grandma, how much she meant to me, to my family. She was great. I could think of 3 words off the top of my head to describe her. First one I can think of is she was strong. I mean, to come over here from Germany, age of 12 years old, raise 5 children, pretty much by herself with my grandpa, and do everything that she did. She was great. Second word I can have to describe her. She was pretty stubborn in a good way. She'd always call just about every other day, talk about anything. Just want to know how you are. Just make sure you get the message that she wants. And if you don't hear from her, she's going to make sure you hear from her. She's going to make sure that you hear what she wants to tell you. You can't escape it. The last word I can think to describe her is she's awesome. She's just an amazing person, and I hope that everybody realizes just how awesome of a life she's lived.
I just want to say I've known Karin for 30 years, and she taught with me for at least 20 of those years. We did some teaching. We taught math lessons together, place value, fly high and multiply. And, she was a wonderful teacher. She related to the kids so well. She had such a sense of humor. And when you were saying some of the lessons that Karin might have taught her class that, didn't come with the curriculum, one that I really remember was when we did fly high and multiply, and we had hot dogs as a, final picnic with that particular lesson. She bought that German mustard too. And, we were all surprised. But the lesson she taught was, once the mustard was out of the tube, you can't put it back in. And the lesson was, if you say a cruel word to someone, you can't take it back. If you do something wrong that you're ashamed of, you can't take it back. And I think just that tube of mustard, left another lesson for all the kids. Fantastic woman, fantastic friend. My husband, good friend of Karen's. I'm pet number 1, Karen was pet number 2. And these are all the teachers that are sitting over here in the classroom. And we have breakfast every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. And David and I would pick up Karin and take her with us out to Richville, to Innovations out there. And we'd have a lovely breakfast. Karin was the queen. She was the one who was doing everything first, before us. You first. We'll follow. Inspiration. And the last time we met, which Frank reminded me, was January. And in January, for some wonderful reason, she started talking about coming over as an immigrant. Stories we knew bits and pieces of, because we heard her, and I've seen her walk into Sandy Marks's classroom with her suitcase and her German shirt that has the puff sleeves on it and her skirt, and she came and gave a program on being the immigrant. Well, she told us about that whole story and her coming here to America as a 12-year-old and to live with a girlfriend of her mother's, to get her out of the war zone and to possibly, have a different life. And so, she lived at seminary here in Saginaw and got married at 18 and, raised 5 wonderful kids. And you guys are wonderful because I know you as adults, and so you are wonderful. And I just want to stand up for the group here of teachers. We all loved her as part of our staff, Jim.
And what was the one thing Mom wasn't real fond about doing?
I don't know. She was
Something about arts.
Oh! I helped her out there. I helped her with that. She wanted to do responses to the teaching of her reading curriculum, and she didn't feel really secure about doing art projects. So I was just down the hall, one classroom away or so. And, we would get together and do some team teaching with the art projects too. And she was a lot better than she thought she was. She really was good. And I know your grandmother used to do all kinds of fancy embroidery work and such. She got some of those talents. The other thing that really impresses me about Karin is the kids that were in her class. No cursive writing, because Karin taught the best cursive and had the best penmanship. She'd have them doing circles at the board and circles and even with the left hand, And, one of the biggest upsets that I knew about with Karin was when she got the Parkinson's. She didn't feel she could write anymore. And she was a poet with words, and she'd write the best cards, of anybody I've ever known. She'd have all the right words to make you feel like you were queen for a day, and those kids were lucky to have her and lucky to learn cursive, plus, her animation in front of the class. I get to see her doing this in front of the class and the little wiggles and all that. I'm sorry, but I love her.
And the one thing Mom didn't do to get her class to behave, she would not yell at them. She would just start talking German. Those kids quieted down just like that.
And she did teach a lot of German, and she was there at the doorway every time the kid came down the hall with open arms if they needed a hug. They all needed a hug.
Yeah.
And she even did that, with her cancer patients. She would say, "Do you need a hug today?" Because she wouldn't approach them if they, didn't like to be touched or something. But she was available and such a strong person that they needed at the time, and her stories.
Thank you very much, man. Carl and Suzanne Gippert were and are still very amazing people that influenced all of my siblings through band, and they were very good friends, and they also were a huge supporter and encouragement to Mom going to school every step of the way. And I'm sure that they probably had something to do with her running for school board as well for Hemlock. So I just want to send a special thanks out to Carl and Suzanne Gipper and Lisa. I recognize you now. I used to babysit Lisa. And their 3 dogs. Sheila, Sam, and Corky, 3 dogs. Yes, I remember that.
Oh Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shouts of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art.
Thank you very much, Martina. This next song is from the 50th anniversary of the Sound of Music soundtrack. Once again, there's a theme here that we all love Sound of Music. I want to thank everybody for coming. Don't quite leave yet because there's a little more in store for you, but we're going to wrap it up here quite shortly. Corey is going to play Edelweiss from the Sound of Music soundtrack 50th anniversary.
Happy to meet me, blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright, you look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever.
When everyone leaves today, there's a young man that's going to be giving you an envelope. Please make sure you get one on the way out. I'm going to have the Ryder family come forward, please, at this time. And I just want to also recognize there are envelopes if you wish to make a donation to hospice out in the hallway as you exit. We'd like to thank everybody for coming. It really means a lot that you're all here. We greatly appreciate it. Taking time out of your busy days. And we are very blessed to have our mother on this earth for such a long time. And she will greatly be missed. And with this, we're going to add a little levity to maybe the songs that seem a little sad, but this one should give you all a little chuckle. And am I supposed to do this right here? All right.
Do it now, just for the heck of it.
Teachers, this is class dismissal time. Sorry, I can get it real loud. That's the best we can do. And with that, Corey, we can go ahead with the last song, So Long.
There's a sad sort of clanging from the clock in the hall, and the bells in the steeple too. And up in the nursery an absurd little bird is popping out to say cuckoo. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Regretfully they tell us, but firmly they compel us to say goodbye
To you. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
We hate to go and miss this pretty sight.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, 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 to you and you and you. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
We flit, we float, we flicky, we fly.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
The sun has gone to bed and someone's died.
Goodbye.